Welcome to the Hormone Hub, your go-to source for the conversations every woman in her 40s and 50s needs to have. I'm your host, Kylie Pinwill, your nutritionist helping you navigate your way through perimenopause, menopause and beyond so you can say goodbye to endless fatigue, unexplained weight gain, hot flushes, PMS, mood changes and more that come on this hormonal roller coaster. If you missed the memo or think this is only for women of a certain age, ladies, it's time to think again. Now sit back, relax and enjoy the show. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my latest episodes, which are released every week. Share it with your friends, your sweaty sisters. The more we talk, the more we help each other. Welcome back, everyone, to the Hormone Hub. Today, I'm so excited to have one of my really good pracky friends here, Nic Topp. So Nic she's been bunkered down in Victoria for the last couple of years. So it's nice to have you surface. So welcome, Nic. I'm really excited to have you here. You and I have talked a lot, about the state of the world, the state of, people's mental health. But I think today what we want to talk about is when, we sort of get to a certain age, and it just happens sort of naturally, is mindset, confidence,
all the fun stuff.
All the package. So welcome, Nic. And
Thank you.
You'd like to say hello and just tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I love talking about all this sort of stuff. I could talk, we both know we could talk for hours and hours and days and months. Let's be really honest about that just for a minute. But look, I have a real affiliation with, how we change and how we grow. And obviously there's so much that we can do from a mental health perspective, even just from a supplement perspective, just like, you've obviously looked at too, and foods and all the things. But what I really love discussing is our mindset and how we can change the way that we literally live so quickly and simply. We just got to commit to it. So look down here, obviously we've had lots of mental health stuff surface across the world. We've had lots of mental health stuff surface. People who haven't had these experiences before. It's super interesting just to see how it's unfolding, but it's all a learning curve and it's all growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we could go down so many rabbit holes, but sort of like steer it towards, women in their 40s, 50s. We've got these hormonal changes. And, what I see from women and what I hear all the time is for the first time ever, they're experiencing anxiety and overwhelm.
Yeah.
But part of that is world circumstances, 100%. But also a part of it is that physiological, it is a change in hormones.
It totally is. And something that we've got to remember too is how that fluctuates and what that's going to do within the body to make us a little bit more susceptible. And that susceptibility is what can often have people like me flapping about going, hey, wait, what just happened? Where am I? So the changes in hormones will literally take you from, and this is why sometimes it's kind of like Melbourne weather, right? Like we need to dress for all seasons for just the one day. And sometimes we get to that stage in our life too, where we realize that something is a little bit off and we can't really put our finger on it necessarily. And 9 times out of 10, it's because of hormonal fluctuation. So we have to notice what goes on there with stress. We have to notice what happens when we are in an overwhelming situation and that the body actually, pulls straight into a proper stress response, like an actual proper stress response where you're secreting all of those hormones and neurotransmitters are off the charts. And we're like, wait, what just happened there? I don't understand. Yeah.
And I often sort of explain it to women too that, we're sort of at that stage of life where we've still got sort of teenage or young children, children, adult children who still need us. We've got, parents who are getting older. We've got sort of careers that are still challenging. And, what blows me away with women is this extraordinary capacity just to push through.
Absolutely.
And carrying the balls, they do what they need to do until we hit a wall.
Absolutely. I like to call that the pulled in all directions situation, where you literally cannot seem to catch your own breath. And that is literally my first tip of the day, is to catch your own breath, because when we have everything coming in from every angle, it is like everybody wants a piece of you and they're all dire. You've got a teenager who's in, crisis. You've got parents, as you said, who you're caring for, and the career and the the house and the partner and all the things, it gets to a point where you feel like you're putting out spot fires. Like, quite literally, I often liken it to that. Have you ever seen, like, in a circus where they spin the plates and they're like, oh, that one's getting wobbly, I'll shoot over there and spin that one a little bit. That's that one, I better spin that. Until it all just completely crashes and burns, and then that's us. And we can't figure out why we've got rage or why we're randomly sad. It's not random. None of this is actually random. It's actually this beautiful transitional phase in our lives where we go from serving everyone else to going, wait a minute, what do I need? And sometimes we don't notice that until, so I've got this kind of a bit of a theory where we get a little tap on the shoulder, and if you don't pay attention, you get a little wallop over the back of the head. You're still not listening, the rug comes out from underneath you, and that's where everything kind of crashes and burns. And it really depends on where you're at and what you're able to do to move yourself through that. But quite frankly, once you start to realise that this is all just kind of a bit of a playing field, and we all get to learn where our new boundaries are and who we are as a person is all over again. We've had these decades of learning this. Now it's time to put it all into practice. And actually teach our kids and our partners and our friends and our family how to treat us again, rather than just being that glue that holds everything together. It gets hard.
Absolutely. We actually had a really good chat. A lady in, our Facebook community had sort of said, she was just having a vent on, her husband has started calling her Sticky Vicky. Like, her name's not Vicky, but, and just making all these jokes about her getting older, because she's now, she's wearing glasses. She's, embraced her greys.
Have you seen my head lately?
As Nic has, and as I have. And it's big, we're not 20 years old anymore. We're not 30 years old anymore.
I wouldn't want to be. Let's be really honest for just a minute. How wobbly were those teen years? How wobbly were those 20s when we're trying to figure out where the F we were going to go and what we were going to do? All of it felt wobbly, and now we're coming into wisdom, and we need to embrace the absolute SH1T out of that wisdom.
Absolutely. And the experience as well,
absolutely. And to actually, realise that is an integral part of who we are and what we need to be doing moving forward, because we kind of, I don't know about you, but I certainly noticed that I would numb out to all of the things. If it got too much, I just kind of went, must push through, must keep going. I got a bit robotic, and I kind of lost connection with who I was, who I thought I was in the world. There's this whole aspect of, this is who I thought I was, and this is how the world perceives me to be. And if you can see me, I'm holding my hands up like a scale. It's kind of this whole thing of like, who am I, but who does the world perceive me to be? And on one hand, you might be superwoman to one person and you feel as though you've got to keep playing that role. But really, there's a really much more softer, gentler, more vulnerable side too that, you don't necessarily allow the world to see. Yeah. So we have this kind of come up against it all of the time over and over again. And it's really time to step into just who we are, rather than trying to please every other person and hold everything together.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's, that sort of stage of life, because our kids are a little bit more independent. Yeah. We've got a little bit more space to actually then explore things for ourselves as well.
And what's really interesting, what I hear a lot of, is that people are not comfortable just sitting in the quiet. Yeah. And that's a really big indication that that's exactly what needs to happen a little bit more frequently, and just touch base with what that actually means for you. Yeah. I've had clients who have gotten quite upset around the fact that they don't even know what they like to do. Yes. You ask, what kind of, what are your hobbies? What do you enjoy? Yeah. And they're just like completely silent. And I'm like, wow, what does that feel like to realise that there's not something that you do for yourself? It doesn't have to be anything amazing. Mine was just having a hot cup of tea under a tree, like in the shade, just chilling out and just listening and taking some time out. And that was all I could muster in the beginning. And that's okay. Yeah. It's a stepping stone,
Absolutely. And I think, women have poured so much into everybody else for the last however long,
Yeah.
basically since our children were born, we pour so much into everybody else. But we've never kind of gone, oh, actually, I'm still a person and I still have things. There's things out there that light me up and bring me joy. I've just
absolutely. So grab the reins and let's just see where it leads. I just started doing things that made me feel weird. And what I mean by that is, if I felt a bit triggered by something, I was like, oh, there's something in that for me. What else can I explore? And it doesn't matter what it is. I've got friends who are off learning to horse ride at the ripe old age of 42. I've got friends who have started doing dance. I've got friends just get out there and have a crack at it. I don't care if my belly wobbles a bit more these days. I don't have time for that anymore. Let's be really, really honest. It's a really interesting thing as we age, and getting back to Sticky Vicky, besides the fact that kind of brings out my inner rage, because I kind of go, how dare he? What, he's not aging?
I know, right?
So it's okay for him to age, but not her. Wait, we were brought up, hating our bodies in our generation, whereas this next generation is so much better at just being. And I'm like, take a leaf out of their book, for goodness sake.
I know. You see, we're living on the Sunshine Coast. We've got all the girls, and okay, a lot of them are quite athletic, but a lot of them aren't so much.
Yeah, but that's our judgment.
Geez, bikini? No worries. And I'm the same. I'm just like, oh my God, kudos to all of you girls.
Totally, but we notice it, right? So our judgment is still there. So there's something in it for us to explore about why does that make me even feel a bit weird?
Well, that's it. We shouldn't even be noticing, but it's sort of
we shouldn't.
We do, but we're sort of, oh my God, she's got so much confidence.
Yes, and some of that is jealousy, in our household, there is a catch cry, I feel weird. I feel weird covers all of the things. So I should give you a little bit of background in this, in that both of my kids have suffered with anxiety. I have too. My husband as well. We're all sort of in that let's say mixed bag. And I have to just quickly note that even though there's anxiety, there's also a depressive swing that happens with that as well. And it's important to notice that happens too, because that overwhelm, that anxiousness, that stress response then is also really depleting. And that's when we don't tend to rest. We push through and then wonder why there's this inner rage burning within us. So the catch cry in our home being, I feel weird, means, okay, something's a little off. I'm not sure what it is exactly just yet, because our emotional intelligence, I didn't have words for it a few years ago. It's taken me a lifetime to get some words for this stuff, and I definitely learnt through my kids too. But I feel weird is, okay, I've just got to check in with myself right now. And at my age, I still do this frequently. I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm feeling right now? Something's funny, and I really still don't know what it is. Where am I feeling it? Okay, it's in my chest. I'm feeling it in my chest. I'm not feeling it down my arm or in my jaw. It's not a heart attack. It's just something feels a little bit, congested or stuck or tight or not quite sure. Okay, so what's going on here? And more often than not, it's a simple action for me of just going, okay, I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to reset my vagus nerve by putting one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly, and I'm going to see where my breath is. Oh, okay, all of my breath is in my chest. Now, we've all seen like a bird hit a window and it comes off and it's like breathing really shallow. It's complete fight or flight. We need to reset that, and we're going to reset that right now. So I'll get you to do this too. We're going to both do it right now. And whoever's listening, it doesn't matter if you're, that's right. If you're driving, please don't take your hands off the wheel. However, do just take a moment to notice where your breath is. So I just want you to see which hand moves. Take a couple of little breaths, just normal breaths. We're not going to do anything fancy. Just see where it is. Now, I'm going to say about 90% of you have your chest moving the most, because that's where your breath is, yeah? So what we're going to do is a little practice of bringing it back down into the belly. And we want to kind of really bring that diaphragm right down to open everything up. You'll notice that it still feels a little bit restrictive when you're starting to breathe into the belly, but with practice, it feels better. In a way, you're going to kind of feel like you can't take in a full breath because you're so used to chest breathing perhaps. But we're just going to have a little bit of a practice, and we're going to breathe a little bit more into the belly. So I want you to feel when you can feel your belly rise and fall. And make sure that you've got your hand on the right part of your belly, which is around your navel there. Not too high, because we don't want you, right up with your liver and checking in with your liver, although that probably needs some love too, but that's okay. But today we're just going to check in where that breath is, and we're going to bring it down into your belly. Take a nice bigger breath than what you had before. and then actually have a little breath out. Now, as you're breathing out, you'll notice that when you're doing belly breathing, you can breathe out much further than what you could breathe in, no doubt. And when we're chest breathing, we're in that fight or flight, but bringing back into that belly, we're actually resetting the vagus nerve and we're resetting that stress response. We're already making moves to help ourselves to feel a little bit more calm. So I feel weird can turn into, I'm just going to take a breath, which turns into, okay, how can I identify what's going on right now?
That's beautiful.
Does that all make sense?
Instantly, like I can feel
it drops. Yeah.
My whole nervous system relaxing.
Yeah, well, it's less up and around your head and it's back in your body. We just want to get you back in your body. Not leaking energy out into every single part where you're pushed and pulled, because that feels frenetic and that's overwhelm. So we're just closing down those tabs and breathing.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think so many of us are disconnected from what's going on in our body.
Yeah, totally. Look, we actually really are, more than what you would imagine. And as someone, like, I do body work as well, you would think that I'd have an excellent sort of connection there, but it's definitely grown, I was going to say, with age. And actually I'm going to own that. I'm going to say with age that has grown, because I've gotten to know what that means for me, because it's different for everyone. No one knows you better than you. Yeah. So don't ever think that somebody else knows you better. Yeah. Honestly. Yes, they'll have knowledge in certain areas, and that's really great support, but nobody actually knows you better than you. So it's actually really important for you to notice what's going on there for yourself, because it'll be different for everyone else.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think that's it. You know, we're all different. We're not a one size fits all. We don't, no two women I speak with have got the same things going on. They can be going through a similar experience, but actually how it manifests for them in their bodies is completely different every single time.
It really, really is. And as you start to discover what happens within your body for you, you can start to use your gut a little bit. And I often joke about, if you've got anxiety, your gut is literally saying abort mission every single time, right? Yeah. But that's not the part of your gut that I want you to tune into. I want you to feel whether or not something is a hell yes or a hell no. Yeah. If it's not a hell yes, it's definitely a hell no. And when you're feeling a little bit vulnerable, a bit wobbly, a little bit anxious, a little bit overwhelmed, we actually have to start scaling back, because I'll be really honest with you, we are much better practitioners, mothers, partners, friends, when we are not taking on too much. Because if we spread ourselves too thin, we only get a very superficial and surface part of ourselves to give to anybody else. Yes. And that's not how I want to roll. That is absolutely stepping forward. In my older age, it's like I'm putting the foot down and I want deeper connection. I want more understanding, and I'd rather just be doing less than trying to service more on a superficial level. Yeah. Yeah. So going for that hell yes, absolutely do it. But if it's not a hell yes, just for the minute, we're in nourish and renew and restructure and, get some foundational health back again. Just for a short period of time, this is a recovery stage. So pull back on the things that you do not necessarily need to do. Saying no is hard, but it's actually really important right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I use with my clients is no is a complete sentence.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You don't have to justify.
No stories.
You don't, just no.
Yep. Sorry, I can't do that. It's not for me. That's my favourite saying. I'm sorry, it's just not for me.
I'm been blunter than that. I'm just, no.
That's okay. That's okay. But I'm a lifelong people pleaser. So anxiety is in my blood. So, I'm just a little bit more aware and a little bit more attuned to that aspect. And and rather than having to make up a whole story about why I can't, I also know that I can't just, it is a complete sentence. No is absolutely a complete sentence. And yet, I can elaborate a little bit without having to push outside of my boundaries, basically.
Yeah. And I think, for the majority of women listening, because we are sort of born people pleasers. So it's, and particularly when you're used to taking on more things. Oh, can you just do the canteen at soccer?
Oh, I know. How is it?
Can you just pick up Auntie Betsy because she's got a doctor's appointment? So after you, run around, do all the things for everyone, oh, could you just,
Do you know what that is too, though? It's because we've always been seen to be wildly capable.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
But it's too much.
Yeah. Well, that's
wildly capable for every other bugger, but not ourselves. Yes. Now is that time. This is like the women wisdom time. This is like where we just go, nah.
Yeah, I know, right? Absolutely. And I think this, it circles back to that whole, stepping into our wisdom, stepping into our experience, stepping into our knowledge of, and it's time to kind of, we've projected that onto everybody around us, but it's time to kind of like take ownership of that back and kind of go, okay, what do I need? What's going to light me up? What's going to bring me joy? What can I let go of,
Because you're a much better person to be around if you've had a little joy. Let's be really honest.
Every time, getting together with that girlfriend for that, big belly laugh, best medicine ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the things you can laugh about just make it all so much funnier.
Yes. Yeah.
But coming back around to that whole, being wildly capable to be able to do all of the things doesn't mean you have to do all of the things.
Yeah.
Scaling back that little bit just for a period of time, if things feel a little bit wobbly, it's acknowledging they feel wobbly, and that might be a really huge commitment for you just to step back a little bit. And any little step is going to be a step in the right direction because you're not too sure exactly where you are. There's a bit of restlessness, that nervous energy, and there's lots of different things that we can do there, but that simple fact of like, no, okay, this is where I need to be for me. And it's teaching everybody else around you how to treat you.
This Hormone Hub episode is sponsored by The Well Balanced Woman. If you've been on a hormonal roller coaster, feeling bloated, your digestion isn't the best, and you're sick and tired of feeling lethargic with your weight creeping up, then this is the right program for you. I'm right there with you across the 12 weeks to hold your hand, and I'll give you a loving kick up the bum if you need it. The Well Balanced Woman is your personalised 4-phase program created to help you regain your energy, balance your hormones and fire up your metabolism so you get the results you're after. The link with all the details is on our show notes or over at kyliepinwell.com/wellbalancedwoman. So just on that, because something that does come up quite a lot is, women sort of get to this age, they've got all of a sudden this, anxiety, which might be new, overwhelm, and they kind of feel a bit lost within themselves. So that, like we talked about, they've lost their hobbies, the things that bring them joy. Where would you suggest that people start?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's going to be really varied depending on the person. But if you're not actually even sure what you like doing anymore, then start with what you used to do when you're a child. Were you creative? Did you like to draw? Did you like to colour in? Yeah. Did you like to just start? Just start anywhere, because it feels really numb and not right to begin with, but it's kind of like you let go after a period of time, or the floodgates open and you kind of go, actually, this is really cool. I kind of like that, but maybe I'd like to go over here and do a class in that. Like I went out and did some jewelry making the other day, just a local woman, and it totally was. I took my mum. It was a Christmas present. We did a thing together. We made rings, and I was like, this is really cool. It's not to say go out and get a $2,000 hobby, but go out and experience some things. Just dip your toe in, try something, whatever floats your boat. If you wanted to be a ballerina since you were a little girl and you never quite got there, visit the ballet to begin with. Maybe that's something that would spark something within you. We want to get that emotion up and out, not just that brittle, frazzled, tears are right on the edge. Like, how sometimes you'll look at someone and you're like, oh, it's right there. And, I'm nasty in consult. I'll poke the bear a little bit because I need that out. We need to move through that and wade through it and then, pick it all back up. Yeah. But and just start.
Yeah. And I think too, it's letting go of the perfectionism of, if we do this, it has to be a certain level. So I've recently joined a pottery course.
Awesome.
So once a week or twice a week, I rock up to my wheel spinning pottery class. And, let's just say there's more clay on me than there is anywhere else.
Perfect. That's detoxifying, right?
Yeah. And they've got this big sign on the wall saying, don't be attached to the outcome. They're sort of saying, play, stretch the clay, stretch your limits, don't worry about, you need to make a bowl or need to make a jug or, anything like that. And then at the bottom, they've got, you don't get a six-pack just because you've joined a gym. So, just because you're doing a pottery class doesn't mean you're going to have a crockery set at the end. No. And that to me was sort of like, okay, I can just come and play and I really don't care if I, the way I'm headed, I'm going to end up with a very odd collection of Menke ashtrays.
But
Guess what you're
hey,
getting for Christmas, Nic?
awesome. Do you know what I'll pop in there is a little bit of incense? Do you know those beautiful little broken up bits? Perfect.
True.
I actually don't have one. So perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect
boom,
idea.
there we go.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
so I totally stretched myself on the weekend and triggered myself too. So while we're sharing about experiences, and it was a sound bath, but at the end, it was actually by Katie Underwood. She's quite well known, and she had us all toning at the end. I don't know if you've ever experienced this or ever done this before, but it was quite the triggering experience of having to be vocal in a group of women all facing each other.
Oh.
And we all just had to keep going and going and going. And I'm like, I wanted to get up and walk out. I'm not going to lie. Like, no shred of a lie. I thought, I'm grabbing my mat. I'm out. I'm not doing this part. No, thank you. But again, totally. But again, in the essence of trying something new and feeling a little bit uncomfortable and seeing how it felt, it was okay. I only wanted to die for a few minutes. And then pushed through to the other side. And I was like, actually, I feel quite elated. And kind of by the time we'd all sort of made some kind of noise for a period of time, I don't know whether it was pretty or scary. Who knows? But it was pretty wild. Yeah. But fact of the matter is, I didn't die. I didn't really. Yes. I kind of went, oh, my gosh, I can't do this. Like, I mean, I have enough trouble talking in a group of women, let alone, getting out there and making a noise that is quite foreign and odd,
Primal.
So, well, it kind of was. And I'm like, and because everybody would take breaths at different times, I'm like, it's just me here right now. It was incredibly uncomfortable, but by the end of it, it was all okay. So, I continue to stretch, especially when things feel really hard. Yes. And I definitely, highly recommend doing it just for the giggles and just see what happens and let go of the outcome. Absolutely.
So that's our challenge for you ladies, is to try something that, that's been dancing around in the back of your head, whether it's a dancing class, pottery class, if you've never been to yoga before, whatever's been dancing around in your head, just give it a go. Give yourself the commitment to giving it a go.
And permission. Just go ahead and have a crack at it,
Yes. Can we just talk about that for a second? Asking permission.
Yeah,
Who
what's
does
with that?
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing, because I had a conversation with a girlfriend about asking permission, and she's like a relationships counsellor, so this is her jam, and I was sort of like, oh no, I don't ask permission or anything like that. I caught myself and I said to Sean, my husband, and I said, oh, do you want to watch this? Like I had the remote in my hand, and I'm like, because like TV is not really my jam, but I'll sit and I'll watch it for an hour before I go to bed. Yep. And I was like, oh, and there was something that I wanted to watch, Inventing Anna, and he didn't. And I was like, oh, and I handed the remote over to him to choose. And then I'm just like, oh my God.
I just asked permission.
I just asked permission to watch. He said no. And I gave him the remote. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
So I've been really tuning into when that happens. And I think, it's what would everyone else like for dinner?
There's permission, and then there's just the general harmonizing of a home. We're harmonizers. Yeah. Women tend to be the harmonizers, and I'm highly empathic, so I tend to know when someone's feeling a certain way because I take that on, and that sounds really odd, I know, but there's just this whole shift that happens when someone else comes into the room, and I'm just like, ugh, or depending on their mood, right? So there's that harmonizing aspect where we just kind of go, what do you need? What do you need to feel right so that I can feel right?
Yes.
So there is definitely a difference between permission and then that harmonizing. But it's more like, oh, I want to do this. Is this okay? Like, no, I'm doing this. What would you like to do while I'm doing this? There is a big difference in those two things. And
very much.
And I think some of that comes up within the perfectionistic traits, and just so that we're really, really clear on what a perfectionist is and is not. It is not striving for excellence. That is not perfectionistic. Perfectionistic is getting near the goal and then changing the goalposts consistently. So you never get there, and you're never going to get there. It's self-sabotage, So just so that we're really, really clear.
Yeah.
And that's actually how we self-sabotage our own happiness and joy, by handing it over to others all the time.
Yeah, very much.
So being a little bit wary of that too. Yeah. There's harmonizing, and then there's asking for permission, so that it's like, I'm handing my happiness over to you. Well, no. Yeah. We're the only ones who are actually responsible for that. So we're going to get off our butts, and we're actually going to ask for it, and we're going to expect it now. Yeah. When we are, moving into this amazing transitional phase of wise woman, we no longer have to seek that permission. It's absolutely time to do what you need.
Yes, I love that. And I think that's so right. And it's, for us to step into, particularly like if we've been in long-term relationships and we're so ground into that's our normal response. But I think, there's that sort of cliche that the kids finish school, the kids leave home, and the couple gets divorced because they don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
It's I guess just having an awareness of who we are as people, who, if you are in a relationship, who you are as a couple, and what you want that to look like for the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So
that contributes to that feeling of lost, because you have this idea of your role and who you are, and if the kids have left home, or even if they've gone from primary school to high school, there's a change in independence, as you well know, and they need you in very different ways.
Yeah.
And what's interesting there is suddenly perhaps we do have a little bit more time. I want to say more time, but I don't really know that that's quite what I'm after. But that sense of loss just is opportunity to explore. So instead of feeling lost,
we have more space.
We have more space, no one's touching you as much.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a weird way. But there is just this bit more of a bubble, and we're like, well, hang on, we get to push ourselves out that little bit more. We're not so much a part of everyone else under our roof. Yeah. It is opportunity. So instead of feeling that loss or lost feeling, I'd like you to try to switch that mindset to opportunity to explore. So get the pens and pencils out, book a thing, do the things that make you feel happy and nourished, and, even if it's coffee with a friend, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. No. We just need to move through this phase with, some kind of purpose, meaning that we're just getting to know who we are now, because we're not the same people every day. Yeah. Yesterday I was different than I am today, and tomorrow I'll be different again. We're always learning, we're always integrating, and the more we step into that, the easier that transition will be, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, Nic, this has been amazing. Thank you. And
thank you.
I'm sure that everyone, there's some real nuggets of gold in there. So what I'll do in the show notes, I'll put, a little bit more about, how you can find out more about Nic and what Nic does, because you're online too, aren't you, Nic?
I certainly am, yes.
Absolutely. Who's not these days? So, yes. So if you'd like to sort of explore what Nic has to offer, all Nic's contact details will be in the show notes, as well as a bit of a summary and reminder of that, just that breathing exercise of how to get back in your body as well. So thanks, Nic. So any last words?
Oh, that sounded ominous. Do you know what? There is one last thing. I would really like to offer the opportunity to be gentle with yourself.
Yes.
So watch that inner voice a little bit. And one of my biggest tips that I share with a lot of my clients is to wear a different piece of jewelry, or even if it's an elastic band around your wrist, I don't really care what it is. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, something that feels different on your body, to remind you to check in with what you're saying to yourself, and if you would speak to a friend like that.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, the way we speak to ourselves, we wouldn't, some of the things we would never say to a friend.
I was going to say you wouldn't speak to your kids like that, but sometimes I think I might.
I was going to say, 3 teenagers in my house.
That was my thought too. I was kind of channeling you there.
All right,
awesome.
Nic, this has been
Thanks
great.
So much.
Great to catch up. Thank you. And
take care.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwell.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links, and I have a little bonus surprise waiting for you. Before we go, it would mean the world to me if you head on over to your favourite podcasts channel, subscribe and leave a review. Make sure to screenshot it, DM it to me so I can thank you personally. Then stay tuned for next week's episode. Can't wait to see you then.